sir. Thank you. First of all, thank the Lord for allowing the opportunity. Thank you guys for sitting through this with me. Thank you, Pastor Ken, Miss Jen, and my wife, and Miss Dorothy and Jerry. Everybody, just thank you for everybody who's been a part of my life, no matter how long. Everybody makes us small, whether it's small or big. Every impact is impactful, and I appreciate it. But tonight, my testimony is going to hinge on Psalm 138:7, but it's really the whole psalm, and it affirms God's promise of protection, deliverance in times of hardship, and so I'll get to it whenever here in just a second of how that specific verse impacted my life. It literally overnight pretty much changed how I viewed life, how I viewed a personal relationship with the Lord, and how I knew that that there was just more. I had purpose. That I had purpose, and there was a different future for me and my family. And I'll preface this testimony. It's centered around love, grace, hope, redemption, and purpose and fulfillment. It's testimony about life. And all of it coming from Jesus Christ, how he showed up in my life primarily through my wife, Melissa, but my wonderful wife, Melissa, but again in many other ways as well, through people, prayer, miracles, church, family, friends, and sometimes strangers. But the whole testimony hinges on Psalms 138:7, and we'll start with there. From a young age, I knew of God. I knew of him. I grew up in an Army family. My dad was an Army Ranger, so I knew of the Lord and knew about him. We moved around so much. We really never went to a church or anything like that. And so it was moving from place to place, and it come down to September of 2001, whenever we were moving to Italy. We were actually on the way to Italy. Our plane had got overbooked, and so we had to stay a night in New York. And so the next day, we had to wait on a flight. But we got to go see New York City that day. It was 9/9/2001, and we were on top of the World Trade Center. We saw the Statue of Liberty, all that stuff, And later on that evening, we caught our flight. We make it to France, get our next flight to Italy, get home, and then the next morning. By that time, it was 9/11, and I was in third grade, and we were just getting out of our first day of school, and that's when the Twin Towers had fallen. And so this time, my dad, who's my hero, I still look up to him to this day. Excuse me if I get a little emotional throughout this. I'm just gonna say I'm not a person that I'm not a big, strong, tough guy. I mean, if I feel tears, sometimes they're just gonna come. I'm just gonna be honest. But my dad was my hero. Mom, she did anything and everything for us. Just like any other mother would. And so, Dad's in training. His unit's about to deploy. Obviously, there's a need for it. And so, I can remember him being home probably 6 or 7 times in the 2 years that I lived in Italy, from 2001 to 2003. At the end of 2002, beginning of 2003, they divorced. We didn't see it coming. I just remember Mom was like, all right, we're leaving. We got on a train. We went to Germany. I remember crying the whole time there because there was no goodbye or anything like that. So we made it to Germany. We flew back home to Georgia, and then my mom met a man in Alabama and got married, and that's how we ended up in Millbrook. And so here I am, 11 years old. One of the most important times as a young man, needing your father in your life. As a time when you're going from, any time in your life, but especially in your time where you're going from being a little boy to, okay, now I see what manhood is, and, I need guidance on that. And it wasn't his fault. He had a duty to fulfill, but he wasn't there. And I wasn't, if it wasn't my dad, I'm like, just like most stepkids. It's like, yeah, bro, you're not my dad. You're not going to tell me what to do. So I was a little ornery, and I didn't listen and stuff like that. And so I started hanging out with kids that were doing bad things, that didn't have fathers in their lives, and were real heathens, I guess you could say. just doing the things you weren't supposed to do. At 16 years old, this time over the 3 or 4 years, from 11 years old, 14, 15, so about 4.5, 5 years, it got to a point so bad where at 16 I had entered my first rehab, well, let me start over with this. In ninth grade, my mom was facing, and she's completely well now. I love her to death. I never held anything. I never held any hatred towards her or nothing like this. But my first Friday of high school, I woke up. There was an ambulance in the front yard, and she tried to OD, and so that's how my high school began. And then that's whenever the drug use and the substance abuse or whatever, that's when it started to it just spiked, okay? And so from there, the next year and a half, there was no telling what I was doing, honestly. I was skipping school. I was just doing everything you weren't supposed to. Like I said, I didn't have my dad. He wasn't around. It wasn't his fault. I didn't blame him or anything like that. I just was kind of lost and confused, obviously. But I was saved. I did get saved before all this happened. I got saved in 2003, like I said. But so at 16 years old, I had entered my first rehab, and when I was there, I realized, okay, so when I get out of here, I can join the military, and I could get off probation. I won't have to do none of this stuff anymore. So, and that's what happened. Is at 16 years old, whenever I got my GED while I was there, and then afterwards, I signed and enlisted into the Guard at 17 years old, and then I went back to school my senior year to try to finish, to do the things the right way, to get my diploma, and in December I went to the counselors to get my package ready for graduation and all that, and they told me, you're not supposed to be here. He said, you have your GED. I said, you're not supposed to be here, and they pretty much kicked me out. And so for the next 6 months until I was getting shipped off, I just did stupid stuff again. You know what I mean? I was knocked down. You know, I didn't have anywhere to go, anywhere to turn to, or anything like that. I was knocked down, and then my dad, he actually came and found me. I lived with him for a month before I shipped off, and I went to infantryman school at 17 years old, and I was the youngest person there, and I graduated a week before my 18th birthday. I did a couple years, and I got out, and because I wanted a family, this, that, and the other, and I knew that growing up in the military household is really tough because I went through it. So I got out, and I just started spraying foam and just living life, just on my own terms, my own accord, just do whatever. I pay the bills. I pay the bills. I can do whatever I want. That's how I viewed it. I viewed God as I viewed Him as anything and everything that was good. I didn't look at Him like He was a person. I knew that Jesus, He's the reason. I knew at this point in my life that Jesus, He's the only way to salvation. You have to place your faith in Him, because when the Passion of Christ first came out, my mom took us to see it. And at 12 years old, you didn't have to explain it. I just seen that movie, and I cried during the whole time of that too as well. But during that whole time, I just knew Jesus, He was who He was. He was who He was. You had to place your faith in Him. But I didn't know Him as a person whenever I got out of the military, and was just living life on my own accord. I didn't know what it was to have a relationship with Him. And so yeah, I never realized I didn't need to be just saved, is what my notes say here, and that's the most important thing. But to have a fulfilling and a life, I needed a relationship with Christ. But that would come later. So this whole time, I'm going through life, and I mean, there's so many points where I just knew that I shouldn't be alive. Literally, I've been going through points in my life where I got woke up, and how I got taken to rehab was my mom couldn't wake me up because I was so messed up, and they were going to let me stay home before Christmas to make it through Christmas, and then I was going to go afterwards. But within 2 weeks. Like my mom, she walked in, she couldn't even wake me up, and then the cops woke me up. I was in handcuffs, and they were just for my own good, and which I mean, it was it was the right thing to do. Now that I look back at it, but it's wild because there's so many different things about life that are you can be in the moment, not understand why it's happening, but then when you look back at it, you're like, okay, that wasn't just because I was lucky or I'm the man or whatever. I mean, something extra had a hand in that. There's a reason why I went through, and that was one of those moments. But anyway, but it comes to whenever me and Melissa met. This is really where this starts, where I begin to realize. That I needed a relationship with the Lord, because when me and Melissa met, we were married, we had cash, and I thought working was going to be my only way of making more money, making things easier, this, that, and the other. And I would work 80 to 90 hours a week at a spray foam company, and Monday through Saturday, and thinking that more money was going to solve my problems, and it just made stuff worse. I mean, it got to the point one night, me and Melissa, we got into an argument or whatnot, and I called Pastor Ken up, the first time I called him up ever, because I mean, literally, like, he was like inviting me to church and stuff like that, and I would look at him and like, what's church going to do for me? I need to make more money. I don't need to go to church. That's just a waste of time. I'm not making money if I'm at church, and it's funny because now, I mean, I without the church and without Christ, I couldn't hold myself together. But I called him up and I was like, Pastor Kent, I was like, explain to him what was going on. He was like, well, how about this? How about I just buy you a hotel room, and you go stay in the hotel room, and then just get away from each other for a little while, and then talk about it later. And at first I was like, no, ain't no way. I said, I'm not leaving the house that I'm paying for, this, that, the other. And I just told him no. I was like. So Melissa had already left by this point, and so I'm cleaning up the house, and I get to thinking about it, and I was like, man, you know what? I said, you might be right. I might need to just take them off. So I finished cleaning up the house. I didn't. My dumb butt. I got I got my Xbox, my guns, and my work clothes, and I take those to the daggum hotel room. And after I checked in or whatever, a buddy of mine lives up the road, and I went over there and I talked to him. I drank a beer or two or whatever, and then I go back to the hotel room and I'm just sitting there playing Xbox, and I'm like, finally, like, all right, I've had it. Like, this is not working. This is not where I want to be. All my life, that's all I wanted to do is have a family that was together. Ours was split up. I was tired of it. My son was just born. I said, this is not what it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, this is not what I want to be doing. I don't have nothing. I can give all this stuff up, but if I don't have my family, like that, it's pointless. And so I looked over, and the Bible was sitting right there. And luckily, Pastor Dan was probably in there, and he took the other Bible out of there. he was probably in there, and he probably took the other Bible. But I opened it up to this psalm, and it's Psalm 138:7 is the one that really touched me. And it says, though I walk in the midst of trouble, you will revive me. You will stretch out your right hands against the wrath of mine enemies. And it may not be 100% theologically, I'm not taking it 100% out of context, Pastor Danny, but I felt it speak to me individually at that moment. And it was telling me, it was like, it doesn't matter what you're going through right now. I don't care who you are, or I'm not going to define you by or what you do or anything like that. He was telling me that he had a plan for me, and that in order to fulfill it, that I would need to pretty much I would put my family first and create a relationship with the Lord. And that was what was most important. And so what happened was the next morning I woke up, I went to work, and I told my boss, I said, I'm not working no more than 60 hours a week anymore. I said, my family needs me more than y'all do. And the next week, I actually got fired for that. I got fired for it. I took a few days. I napped. I made 2 phone calls. And through blessing of Melissa that she had a little bit of money. And then I made another phone call to somebody. And we were able to buy the rig for Foamaholics. And so I took that leap of faith. And trusted God. I said, okay, God, this is what you want me to do, then I'm going to do it. I got fired, made a couple phone calls, and then that's how Foamaholics was born. But I mean, I can't stress it enough of how much God's presence or relationship with God in our lives, like every day, like every single day, like He shows up. And I don't, some people are sitting there searching for God, and I'm like, why are you searching? You don't have to search. You just look around. Like, you're searching so hard that you don't see Him. So if you just take a second and you just stop and you look around, it doesn't matter. You see God in everything. It doesn't matter how big. Like you said in the Bible, look at the ant. You tell them, like, okay, look at the ant. You tell them you need proof of God. Look at the oxygen, the trees, the skies, just everything around you. And just the fact that we're here, we actually are living, and so that psalm really struck me, and then I started coming to church, and at first I started coming and this, that, and the other, and I'm going to church, giving everything I have, and I think it was before me and Melissa got married that. I remember one time I walked up to Pastor Ken. I was probably coming. It's probably the 3rd week that I'd been coming to church. I'm like, I'm ready to be a member now. And he was like, no, not yet. And then I know that whenever he said no, that the last thing that I told myself, well, there's obviously something I'm not doing. There's obviously something that I don't see that the pastor sees. And at a moment in time where a lot of times previously to that, I probably reacted to that rejection pretty harshly. I was like, you know what? There's a reason why he's saying it, so I got to take a step back and I got to look at it, And it was just funny. I don't know. It was just funny how it all played out. And so, eventually start going to church more and more and more and become a member, and then. Just throughout my whole adult life up until about 6 years ago, I battled addiction to no end. It didn't matter what it was. I've gone through it like to no end. I remember one day I was in the shower and I was tired of it. I was sick and tired of it. I was sick and tired of waking up and chasing a high that it didn't do anything. It doesn't do anything for you. It just temporarily blinds you. It makes you feel like, oh, yeah, this is what you need. It destroys your family. It takes all your money away. You wake up alone. There's nothing that any drug or substance or whatever can do to fulfill the emptiness in your heart, especially when you wake up. All the partying, it doesn't matter. You can go party out with all your friends, but at the end of the day, you're going to wake up by yourself and you're probably going to be broke. You're not going to remember what happened. There's not going to be any good that comes of it. And I was tired of it. And I remember, I got in the shower. At this point, I was going through, withdrawals. I was going through withdrawals at this point. They just started, and I was in the shower. I turned up hard as it could go, and I asked Jesus. I said, Jesus, please just get these demons out of me. I'm tired of it. Excuse me. I said, I'm tired of it. I said, I don't want to live this life anymore, Jesus, please. And I went to bed after I took that shower. The next morning I woke up. I have not one symptom of withdrawal or nothing after that. Not one. And since then I haven't had to battle that. But throughout my whole life, I've seen pain. I've seen a lot. And I'm trying to keep it somewhat short. But I guess I could have slowed down a little bit. But I guess I could have. Sorry, it's my first time, y'all. But throughout my whole life, I've always known God. Like there was just always something else there, because there's been times where, I remember the night before I got taken into rehab the police woke up. I drove out to Hopeville, And I remember driving out there, but on the way home, the only thing I remember about the ride home was crossing the yellow lines one time and coming back this way. That was it. That's all I remember that. I don't know how I got home. I mean, I do now, obviously, but I made it home. I mean, there's episodes of that throughout my life where it's just like, okay, you could have been. I've been beat with a pistol before, but I've been shot at. And each time it's kind of just crazy when you look back at it. Each time God's pulled me through it, and it's like, look, man, like, come on, man, I can't. You got a purpose. You're here, and you got to keep going. But it's just crazy how it works out. Sorry, I got a little sidetracked. But it comes to, when me and Melissa get married and stuff like that, and then become a member of the church. And then over time, I volunteered to help Oscar and them with the media, and I love doing it. It took me forever to learn how to to do it. It was like, I don't know, it's like rocket science then, but now I can do it like with my eyes closed. But I mean, just little opportunities just like that to serve around the church. And now, what I really love doing the prayer time. If just to say that, but without God, none of that's possible. And all that comes through His grace. I mean, let me see. So before I built a relationship with God, I knew of Him, I was saved, all that stuff. I was living, of course, on my own accord, and what I thought was right. And then how I came to Christ was my wonderful wife, Melissa. She was literally hounding me about it. We'd get in arguments, and I just want to sleep on Sundays, and she was like, no, I'm not going to be with a man who's not going to go to church, pretty much. And so, I come to Christ and start walking with the Lord and build a relationship with Him. And that in itself, even without living a whole life, if you know that and you can walk with the Lord, you'll have a fulfilled life. I mean, it doesn't take much. Not much as far as effort, but it doesn't take much from the Lord. Once you recognize it and you know it and you feel it, it's true, then that's pretty much all you need. You want to expand, you want to build that relationship, and God doesn't ask us to be perfect either. He just asks us to be a little bit better every day. He wants us to be able to identify our sin. He wants us not to define us by our sin, and He wants us to be able to identify it. And then whenever you start your walk with Christ, you sit there and you're like, well, you're starting to identify sin more. You're like, well, am I sinning more? And it's kind of scary at first because it's like, well, daggum, am I sinning more? But it's actually you're realizing what sin is, and you can understand it, you see around you. It's crazy because I got sorry, I'm all over the place. But I got a buddy that, I was explaining it to him not too long ago. I was like, when you come to Christ and you have a relationship with Christ, you're going to think you're sinning more, which, it may or may not be true, but at the end of the day, your realization of the sin, you're just going to see sin a lot more. And that's a good thing, because then you see with the eyes of the Lord, not perfectly, but you see a little bit more from His perspective, and you'll be able to walk with Him a little bit easier, and you'll be able to talk to Him. You'll be able to admit your sins, and you'll be able to understand that He's not, like I said, He's not asking us to be perfect. He's just asking us to be able to recognize and be a little bit better every day. It's been crazy. Before, let's see, when I was, 21 to about 24, I got on one of those videos about the law of attraction. And, Pastor Danny has a bunch of C4C stuff on that, and the New Age Christian or whatever it's called. But, and I used to, they make it very appealing. They make it easy to like, okay, that sounds great. Anything I think of can be right there in front of me. And I used to believe in that somewhat too at one point in my life. But I always knew that like none of that's possible without God. Like and either way, it's life is weird. It's really weird, and it's. But now, so I went from living on my own accord to doing all this stuff, and not getting any purpose, fulfillment out of life, to coming into a church that accepted me for who I was. They didn't let me. Y'all didn't let me in. You made a way for me to come in and be a member, but I had to do it on my. You know what I mean? I had to actually walk through it and do it and prove that I was actually trying to do the right thing. And I'm thankful for that. Yeah, I went to go write all this stuff down, and every time I went to go write, I just couldn't. I just felt like the Lord was like, just go in there and just give your testimony. Let me see. One other thing that I had written down is like this, like I mentioned just a minute ago. You don't have to look for God. He's already there. Every time I wasn't enough, every time I didn't know what to do, He did. Sometimes all you have to do is show up, and He'll handle everything else. I mean, you can be broken, beat up, and show up, and He takes care of all of it. I mean, it's not always like that. Sometimes you have to work your butt off, and you have to show up day after day after day. But He doesn't ask us, like I said, He doesn't ask us to be perfect. He just wants us to be better and be able to recognize where we fall short at, and that alone is powerful. But the biggest thing is that He's never going to ask us to do something like that alone. I said He owns all of my life. I said I don't have anything without Jesus. I said I mean, if really when you think about it, if you own something, how can you own something when if you died you don't take it with you? So really, we're not owners in anything. Like whenever I go to a job site or something like that, they'll be like, so you're the owner? I'm like, well, me and my wife are borrowing it. The Lord's the owner. I said, He owns everything. I said, me and my wife are just borrowing it. But so you're claiming it's something, you can't claim something you can't take with you. But a relationship with Jesus Christ you could take with you. And really, I guess my last thought would be is to like it's said again earlier, my last thought to anyone who wants to pursue the Lord, they may be scared that they aren't good enough. First of all, don't be scared. Jesus doesn't define you by what you do. He defines you by your heart and who you are. I said through your relationship with Him, you'll begin to see through a clear lens. And you may, like you said, you might think that you're sinning more and more, but that's a good thing. And don't confuse the recognition of sin with the action of sin. So as you build a relationship with Jesus, it'll get not necessarily easier, but like I said, you won't have to do it alone. And even like today, every day, like I said earlier, every day is life is a testament. Last week we had a truck breakdown. Okay, throughout all this, we have one old truck. We got a new truck that we run with the trailer. Well, the old truck it needed a rear end, and it took like almost 2 years to find the rear end of it. And so the week before that, we went and got it. We put it in the truck, all that stuff. And then that last week, the new truck broke down. Well, guess what? We were going to sell that old truck, but now the Lord knew that we were going to need that truck this week, and so it was fixed, and it's out on the road. This morning, or yesterday, the truck breaks down on the way back from the job site. Okay, so we'll get it towed back to the house and all this, that, and the other. I just told Melissa, I said, I'm just going to hook it up on the batteries, put it on the chargers, and I'm going to take it up to AutoZone and have everything tested. Well, I'll take it up there. The alternator's bad, and guess what? We got a warranty on it. So it's like no matter what we go through in life, our day-to-day situation it is, God always has an answer. He's not, there's not a time. I remember so many times where He's just showed up in little ways. I remember a time where we first started the business, and I was on the way back and ran out of diesel. I had just enough diesel in the generator to siphon out of it, put in the truck to make it back to cash the check. Just so, I mean, just times like that where you don't know how you're going to do it, but you know the Lord's going to pull you through it. And so you just wake up and you just go. I mean, it sounds crazy, but it works. And I'm not telling you to just go out and just do something crazy, like, you know, and expect Him to just whatever your will is. But if you're doing the right thing, and you have a relationship with the Lord, He's always going to show up. And He showed up in my life, well, my wife too, in many ways, and I appreciate Him and you guys more than I could speak words to. So throughout this all, my life went from not really having a purpose. It wasn't fulfilling at all. I was battling addiction to, like I said, to no end. And just many other forms of sin. He broke the chains on the addiction. I have purpose. I have fulfillment in my life. I have a family. That's the number one thing I ever wanted. And I get to share, you know, the gospel day in and day out. You know, the first thing I ask everybody whenever they come to work for us, are you saved? And if they say what? Or so you haven't heard the gospel, I make sure they heard the gospel. You know, every job I go to, I'm like, I try to just, I try to stick my foot in the door. Any little way I can talk about the Lord, I would talk about the Lord. And I'm not trying to do that just to sound good or nothing like that, because I just genuinely want to see people, I just want to make sure that they're saved. And like with the Day of the Lord Tacticians thing, my whole goal with that T-shirt business, or that T-shirt little thing, is to get people to ask questions about it, because I couldn't stand the thought of walking up to somebody and like poke them. Like, yo, you saved? You know, I just didn't, I'm not that person. But if I can get them to ask a question about a shirt, then I can give them the gospel, and they're like, okay, bro, you asked for it. you asked for it. So come, you got to get it all. And it's, there's not a day that goes by that I don't thank Jesus. There's not a day that goes by that there are days that go by that question Him. There are days that go by, I'm like, what do you got me going through? What do you need me to see now? Like, you know, but at the end of the day, I know I can trust Him. I know I can lean on Him, and I know that it's not some story in a book. It's actual history. Jesus is real, and He lives among us still to this day. And to me, it's like everybody asks for proof. And I'm like, the existence of God. If you look around you, it's like, what else? You can't sit here and say it came from nothing. It's like God. If you look around you, God is everywhere. He's everywhere. Like I'm saying, there's no way that you're talking about the expansion of the universe, or if you're talking about the probability of one man fulfilling, whether it's 30 or 200 prophecies from the Bible, you know, or if it's how a woodpecker's head is designed, or a termite. All those, because you know a termite doesn't actually eat the wood. There's actually an organism inside of it that eats the wood, that digests it. A woodpecker's head, his tongue's wrapped around it so he doesn't lose it whenever he's pecking the wood. The expansion of the universe, 1 second faster or 1 second slower, it would have imploded or exploded. There's too many things that point to God, and with that being said, everything else points to Jesus. Everything else has been studied on, the most studied man in history. There's not one thing that's really disproven. I've never seen someone come up with any kind of evidence that actually made sense, that, you know, you could actually give a sound argument for that showed that Jesus was not a true person, and that He was not who He said He was. And with that, that's where Psalms 138:7 came from. It came from a simple. It came from Pastor Ken and a simple offer for a hotel room to prevent a couple from fighting. It changed my whole life, and it changed it for the better. I'm not a perfect person, but I'm a child of God, and I'm saved, and every day I try to be a little bit better. And I'm sorry if I was a little, there and there, a little bit. first-time jitters or whatnot. Thank you guys for listening, and I'm going to close with a word of prayer. Dear Lord, just thank you for who you are, what you do, what you continue to do, and what you'll do in the future. Thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, and his finished work on the cross. Thank you for my wife, Lord, this church family, and everybody who has a part in all of our lives. We just ask you, Lord, that you just follow us throughout this week. You give us the courage, bravery, and strength to present the gospel, and just to shine light on who Jesus is and who he will always be. And we ask this in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.